What happens when Kody's massive ego meets David's protective nature? A physical altercation that TLC is trying to hide. Let's get right into it because the reality television gossip sphere is absolutely exploding right now with a wild rumor from the summer of 2026. And if these blind items are accurate, we are looking at the single most explosive off-camera moment in Sister Wives history. We are talking about a tense run-in at a recent family gathering where David Woolley allegedly backed Kody Brown into a corner after a deeply inappropriate comment was made toward Truly. And by the end of this, I'll show you the one detail from that day that almost nobody noticed. The exact words Kody is rumored to have said that triggered David, and the cowardly way Kody supposedly exited the party while TLC cameras mysteriously went dark. The network might be trying to bury this footage, but the internet never forgets, and we are going to break down every single piece of this puzzle. But to get there, and to understand why a physical confrontation between these two men was always inevitable, we have to start at the beginning and look at the absolute powder keg of tension that has been building since the day David Woolley stepped into Christine's life. You see, Kody Brown has always operated under a very specific psychological framework. For decades, he was the undisputed patriarch of a massive plural family, a man who demanded loyalty and respect simply by virtue of his title. He didn't have to earn it, he just expected it. And for a long time, the wives and the children fell in line. But when Christine left, she didn't just take her share of the TLC paycheck and move to Utah. She took Kody's fragile ego and shattered it on national television. Now here is where we have to separate what is confirmed show history from what fans are theorizing. It is a documented, on-the-record fact that Kody felt profoundly emasculated by Christine's departure. We saw it in his own interviews, in his outbursts on the porch, in the way he accused her of essentially stealing his family. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, threatened Kody's worldview quite like the arrival of David Woolley. David is everything Kody is not. David is quietly confident. He doesn't need to shout to control a room. He has an established, loving relationship with his own children and grandchildren. He genuinely adores Christine and treats her like a queen, which we all saw in the beautifully documented wedding specials. And most importantly, David is entirely unimpressed by reality TV fame. He doesn't care about the cameras, he doesn't care about the TLC producers, and he certainly doesn't care about Kody Brown's patriarchal complex. This dynamic is crucial to understand because it sets the stage for the rumored explosion we are going to dissect today. Hold that thought about David's quiet confidence because it plays a massive role in how he allegedly handled Kody later at this summer gathering. But before we get to the actual face-off, we have to talk about the ultimate trigger point in this entire family dynamic, and that is Truly Brown. If you have been watching this show for years, you know that Kody's relationship with Truly has always been complicated, and frankly, deeply frustrating for fans to watch. We all remember the horrific incident years ago when Truly went into acute kidney failure while under Kody's supervision, a documented traumatic event that Christine has spoken about at length. We remember the awkward bike riding lessons where Kody was more focused on forcing Truly to comply than actually comforting her. And we certainly remember the divorce negotiations where Kody casually suggested 50-50 custody, mostly as a bargaining chip to prevent Christine from moving to Utah, despite the fact that he barely spent any time with Truly when they all lived in Flagstaff. This is the factual history. These are the documented realities of how Kody has treated his youngest daughter with Christine. Now, enter David Woolley. From the moment David came into the picture, he stepped up as a fiercely protective grandfather and stepfather figure. Fans immediately noticed the stark contrast in the background of Christine's social media posts. There was David, actively engaging with Truly, making her laugh, creating a safe and stable environment for her in Utah. It is a known fact that Truly has blossomed in this new environment. She is surrounded by unconditional support, free from the chaotic, conditional affection that defined her early years in Flagstaff. And you have to imagine how that looks to Kody. Here is another man, a man who already took his wife, now effortlessly providing the fatherly stability for his daughter that he never could. The resentment must be absolutely suffocating. And that brings us to the summer of 2026. The whispers started circulating on blind gossip sites and Reddit forums just recently, describing a tense, uncomfortable, extended family gathering. Now, to be incredibly clear, the exact nature of this event is heavily guarded by non-disclosure agreements, and TLC has not confirmed these details, so we are operating in the realm of highly detailed fan speculation and rumored leaks. But according to the sources that have been lighting up the fan boards, this was one of those rare, unavoidable situations where Kody, Robin, Christine, David, and a large portion of the kids, including Truly, were all mandated to be in the same room. Maybe it was a graduation party, maybe a wedding reception, or perhaps a forced TLC filming event designed to capture the blended family tension. Whatever the specific occasion, the atmosphere was reportedly thick enough to cut with a knife. The rumors claim that from the moment Kody and Robin arrived, Kody was attempting to overcompensate. You know exactly what I am talking about. We have seen it on the show countless times. When Kody feels insecure, he gets loud. He puffs out his chest. He tries to hold court. He forces awkward interactions to prove that he is still the center of gravity in the family orbit. David, on the other hand, was allegedly doing what David always does, sitting back quietly, observing, and focusing his attention entirely on Christine and the kids. But that's not even the strangest part of the rumor. The real friction supposedly began when Kody realized that his attempts to command the room were failing completely. His older children were reportedly keeping their distance, offering polite nods but refusing to engage in deep conversation. And this is where fans on Reddit start to piece together the timeline of the explosion. According to the unverified leaks, Kody, feeling increasingly marginalized and desperate for a profound on-camera moment, decided to zero in on Truly. Now, remember the forward promise I made you at the beginning of this video? I told you we would get to the exact words that supposedly triggered this entire mess. If the blind items are to be believed, Kody approached Truly while she was sitting near David and Christine. Truly, who is a smart, perceptive teenager with boundaries of her own now, reportedly gave Kody a very polite but very brief, detached response. She wasn't rude. She was just completely unimpressed by his sudden performative display of fatherly interest. This polite rejection in front of a crowded room, and more importantly, in front of David Woolley, allegedly caused Kody to snap. The rumor asserts that Kody, unable to regulate his wounded pride, leaned in and muttered something incredibly passive-aggressive to Truly. While the exact verbatim quote is debated among the gossip sites, the overwhelming consensus is that Kody said something along the lines of questioning her respect, allegedly telling her that Utah was turning her into a stranger, or that she was forgetting who her real father was. A comment explicitly designed to make a young girl feel guilty for finding happiness and stability away from him. And that was the match in the powder barrel. You cannot mess with a protective man's family and expect him to just sit there, especially not a man who has spent the last few years helping to heal the very wounds Kody inflicted. According to the blow-by-blow accounts burning up the fan forums, David did not shout. He did not wave his arms around or perform for the cameras the way Kody does. Instead, David supposedly stood up slowly, stepping directly between Kody and Truly, cutting off Kody's line of sight completely. This physical block, this silent assertion of dominance and protection, is exactly what we have come to expect from David's psychological profile. He doesn't need to argue. His presence is the argument. The leaks claim that David lowered his voice so that only the immediate circle could hear, stripping Kody of the dramatic audience he desperately craved. David is rumored to have looked Kody dead in the eye and said, very calmly, that he needed to walk away, right now, and that he would never speak to Truly in that tone again. Can you imagine the sheer panic coursing through Kody Brown in that moment? For over a decade, Kody has bullied, talked over, and bulldozed his wives and children because he knew they would eventually yield to his temper. But suddenly, he is standing chest to chest with a grown man who is taller than him, a man with calloused hands and a lifetime of real-world experience, a man who is absolutely not intimidated by him in the slightest. What do you do when your entire reality TV persona is built on being the alpha male, and you suddenly meet a real one? We'll come back to exactly how Kody handled that physical reality in a moment. But first, we have to talk about the cameras. One of the most fascinating aspects of this entire rumor is the allegation that TLC production was present and actively filming when this happened. If that is true, this footage would be reality television gold. It is the exact culmination of years of narrative tension. But the blind item suggests that the moment David stood up and closed the distance with Kody, the dynamic shifted from standard reality TV bickering to genuine, unpredictable physical danger. Reality television sets have very strict protocols about physical violence, and producers are known to intervene if a situation is about to become a liability. The rumor mill states that producers started scrambling, frantically trying to assess if they needed to pull security in to separate the two men. Fans have heavily theorized that TLC is desperately trying to bury this footage, not because it isn't entertaining, but because it completely shatters the illusion of Kody's authority and crosses a line into raw, unscripted hostility that the network might not be legally comfortable airing. Now, we promise to reveal exactly how this confrontation ended, the climax of the rumor that perfectly encapsulates everything we know about these two men. When David Woolley drew that line in the sand, standing between Kody and Truly, radiating quiet, dangerous energy, Kody was faced with a choice. He could escalate, stand his ground, and potentially get into a physical altercation with a man who clearly had no fear of him, or he could retreat. And if you have studied Kody Brown's behavior over the last 18 seasons, you already know exactly what he did. Bullies do not like fair fights. The detailed leaks claim that Kody puffed his chest out one last time, tried to sneer to save face, but ultimately, he took a step back. He didn't throw a punch. He didn't even raise his voice again. Instead, he supposedly shot a frantic look over at Robin, who was reportedly watching the entire exchange with wide-eyed shock, and muttered something under his breath about the environment being toxic and disrespectful. And then, Kody Brown allegedly turned around and practically speed-walked out of the venue. The rumor is that he left the gathering entirely, completely humiliated, fleeing the scene because he simply did not have the psychological toolkit to handle a man who refused to submit to his narrative. Let that image sink in for a second. Kody Brown, the man who demanded that his wives bow to the patriarchy, the man who alienated his own children over COVID rules to prove a point about his absolute authority, allegedly running away from a family gathering because Christine's new husband simply stood up and told him no. It is poetic justice on a level that reality television writers could only dream of scripting. Now, again, we have to reiterate that this entire blow-by-blow account is sourced from summer 2026 blind items, Reddit sleuths, and fan whispers. TLC has not released this footage, and they likely never will if the legal and physical implications were as severe as the rumors suggest. But why does this specific rumor feel so incredibly believable to the massive Sister Wives fan base? Why is this story spreading like wildfire? Because it perfectly aligns with the confirmed, documented psychological truths of everyone involved. We know Kody is deeply insecure about his fading control. We know Truly is a sensitive topic. We know David is fiercely protective of his new family. And we know that Kody fundamentally lacks the emotional regulation to handle being put in his place. The fan theory isn't just a wild guess. It is the logical conclusion of an equation that has been building for years. And frankly, whether the physical standoff happened exactly as the blind items describe, or if it was just a tense, silent, glaring match across a buffet table, the underlying truth remains the same. Christine won. She found peace. She found a man who fiercely protects her children, and she escaped the chaotic orbit of a man who values his ego above his family's well-being. David Woolley doesn't need to physically fight Kody Brown to destroy him. His mere existence as a loving, capable father figure is the greatest defeat Kody could ever suffer. So now I want to turn this over to you, because this rumor has completely split the fandom down the middle. If David and Kody actually fought, if things had really come to blows at that gathering, who do you think would win? Would Kody's frantic energy give him the edge, or would David's quiet strength absolutely sweep the floor with him? Tell me your detailed predictions down in the comments below. I am reading every single one of them. And if you love deep dive investigations into the real psychological drama behind the Brown family, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update when these TLC secrets finally leak. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.